Hey, brand builders, ready to take your brand to the next level? I'm Dana Ammons, and welcome to the Brand Blueprint.
Brand Blueprint, where we break down how founders are actually building, scaling, and surviving the job of growing brands in real time. And this is the real story, not the polished Instagram or Facebook version. So we're really happy today because I've got a special guest with us. Today, I am joined by Sruti Baz. She is the founder of Mouma's, an Indian lentil meal kit that is making heritage-inspired meals more convenient, approachable, and pantry-friendly for modern families. Now, Shruti started with a simple but powerful insight. Lentils are nutritious, affordable, and deeply tied to culture and home cooking, but for some reason still undiscovered by many American palates and American shoppers. And that's where Shruti's coming in to change the game. Moma's takes that everyday comfort food foundation and turns it into an easy meal kit with flavor, spice, and a founder story built in to boot. Since launching, Sruti has gone from markets and early customer validation into grocery distribution, Amazon, and marketplace planning. And we'll talk about a recent win, which is an actual path to Walmart distribution via a recent Walmart FastPass that she was able to secure as recently actually as yesterday. So this is a really fresh. So today we are going to talk about what it really looks like to build a CPG brand while working, while parenting, learning retail, and deciding how big of a vision she can take this to. Shruti, welcome to the Brand Blueprint. I am so excited to have this conversation with you.
Hi, Dana. Thank you so much for having me today.
No, thank you for joining the show. And I really appreciate you taking time to come on and share your founder story. But before we get started, I want to loosen it up with a real quick rapid fire round. And that's one of the things that we do on the show to just allow our listeners and viewers a chance to get to know you more on a personal level. So are you ready to jump in?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. Now, first question I'll ask every founder, because I'm always intrigued on your morning routine. Are you a coffee or tea person or other?
Coffee, 100%. I wish I drank more tea. I always am trying to drink more tea, but I start my day every day with coffee.
Now, are you a person that needs to get your coffee from a specific retail place? Are you a Starbucks person or a Dunkin' Donuts person? Or I know Cleveland is not necessarily one of those territories. Do you have a special blend or a special place that you like to get your coffee from?
So most of the time I make my coffee at home and I get it the big Costco bag. But we have great coffee shops in Cleveland. So I always try to go to local coffee shops. There's I think 5 in my neighborhood that I could walk to. So when I'm meeting up with friends or colleagues, we do a lot of walking meetings to coffee shops and just try to support local.
Very nice. I love it. I love it. Now, tied to the culture and the product, I've got a question for you that I think we'll get into when we talk in the interview. But if you could describe your brand, Mouma's, in one word, how would you describe it?
Oh, that's tough. Gosh, I'm really struggling with this. This is really hard. Comforting.
I love that. I love that. And so, follow-up question on that in terms of comforting, what SKU would you serve somebody who's never tried Mouma's?
Okay, so I have 2 answers. If the person likes spicy, I would give them some Sambar Dal. It's our yellow peas and lentils, and it's just a unique flavor with a lot of different spices. So it's complex. It's my favorite. I eat it almost every day. And if the person does not like spicy, or if they feel like they need a gateway lentil, I usually have people try the red lentils, which is a fan favorite.
I love that. And I am a fan of Indian food, and you and I have talked fondly about this range of spices and the range of flavors in Indian food. And one of the things we talked about, which I think is a distinctly American experience, which is spice level, right? Where do your spice levels really fall? And are you an American 5 or are you an Indian 5 on the spice level scale? So I got that question for you, Shruti. Are you an American 5 when you order Indian food, or are you a Indian 5?
Oh, that's so funny. I'm an American 5, an Indian 3.
I love that. American 5, Indian 3. I love it. I love it. And that probably similarly is probably me, I would say. I'm definitely all the way American 5, but I'm definitely not ready for Indian 5, I think. I've walked out of a couple of places with curries that were still sticking with me in my mouth literally while I was in the car. And I'm like, whew, that was a pretty refreshing experience. So I love that. Now, the follow-up question of that, name one spice that you think more Americans need to understand.
So in our yellow peas and lentils, we have whole mustard seeds. And there are some mustard companies that are using whole mustard seeds, but I haven't really seen mustard seeds in other contexts.
Oh,
So
that's
I think it's probably out there and maybe I'm just not aware. But I think mustard seeds gives a really interesting taste. And the fact that it's whole, you get that texture. So I think that's really fun. And then also dried curry leaves. I think dried curry leaves are so good. I could just eat them out of the bag. And they're in some of our lentils. And recently I've been adding them to my salads. So I think curry leaves, we use dried for our packages, but just the real curry leaves are tasty.
I so agree. And you can't find them in regular grocery stores. You almost have to go to an Indian grocer or order them online. But they are so really versatile to cook with. I use powdered curries in eggs. I use them as part of our breakfast routine. I use them in soups and stews, right? And I actually use some of the curry powders mixed in my barbecue spices. So when I'm doing a dry meat rub, I like to throw some of the curry spices in there as well. So love that advice. Now, you come from a very rich and supportive community and family. And we've talked a lot about your family and just the support you receive from them. Tell me about the best founder advice that you've received from either a family member or a community member.
I get so many, I feel like advice and support comes to me from different angles. So from my family, of course, my parents, my in-laws, my husband, it's always keep going, you're doing something great. Whatever you need, we got you. Especially from my parents and my in-laws. They're like, don't worry about it. We got the kids. And it's really life-changing. And I know that we're really lucky. From other founders here in Cleveland, there's a lot of different founder communities and accelerators. One in particular I'll highlight is the Wonder Women of Food, which is
Nice.
of women-owned food businesses. And it is so supportive. I feel like if I have a question or if I want to share resources, it's really friendships at the end of the day, which I think makes it just a really unique and special place.
I love that. And how can people find more out about that particular network? Is that something they can find online and go out to sign up on?
Yeah, so it's for women food-owned businesses in Cleveland. So if you fall into that category, you could Google it or reach out to me. And then on social media, they have a presence. They're very active.
No, shout out to them. We'll definitely make sure we include that information in the show notes for our listeners and our viewers. Now, continuing forward with our rapid fire before we wrap up, you are also a parent. And one of the things that I love about talking to founders are founders that find a way to make it happen despite the fact that they have full-time day jobs and in many cases are parenting and a wife. So you are part of a union where I'm sure you have responsibilities and things that you're doing for your husband and with your husband as well. So talk a little bit about what the hardest part is in terms of building a brand while you're parenting and working full time.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would definitely say time. There's so many more opportunities and things I could be doing. And there's demos I could be doing every weekend. There's events and networking and opportunities I could be pursuing. And because I have more limited time at this stage of life, I feel like my yeses mean a lot more. And I'm starting to get really clear on, okay, as much as I would love to do this, I just can't right now because there's just an immediate trade-off. And I also am just planning out a lot more. Yeah. So I work full time, so I'm not seeing my kids during the day, Monday through Friday. And then on Saturdays are usually markets and demos. So I've really leaned into what is the ROI? What is this going to mean for expansion into these markets and things like that? So I'm very selective with how I spend my time, which I think has served me well.
I think it's great advice. And as I think about the brand and where you have taken the brand, given to the point your intentional decisions, because you can't say yes to everybody and you can't do everything for everybody, right? Especially when you have priorities like your children and your marriage and your job. So talk a little bit about, or answer, I guess the better way to ask this question is, if you had to identify an area of the business that you feel you were most suited to really manage before you became a founder, what part of the business was that? And why did you feel so much more prepared to manage that part of the business?
In all honesty, I think it's the part of the business I'm probably managing the best. I've leaned into that, but I would say product development and then also marketing the brand. I don't necessarily have a marketing strategy. I will show up to a pitch and speak very passionately about it because it's something I care deeply about and I really believe in.
Yeah.
And now I have to build the other components of the business around it and think about how to make sure that those different pillars are stood up with my limited time and resources.
No, and you've done some really fantastic and fascinating work in that marketing space for somebody who's like, I'm not really a marketing person. I want to just quickly touch on a recent collaboration you were able to secure in a space that people may not naturally think of when they think of lentils. Tell the audience a little bit about this unique collaboration and where they can find it.
Yeah, so it's still in conversation. So I won't quite announce all the details yet until it's solidified, hopefully in the
Preview here on the Brand Blueprint.
Yeah. So if you're in Cleveland, you'll hear me talk about Cleveland a lot because I love it here. And we have a great community of people and local businesses. There's a lot of different local businesses that are thinking about community and supporting. And one of the businesses that has stood out to me is a local ice cream shop who has been in Cleveland for about 10 years, is just down the street from where we live. And they're very experimental. And so I reached out to them a couple weeks ago and said, hey, I think one of our SKUs, our mung beans, would do really well as far as being transformed into an ice cream. Mung beans are really popular now, and people are using it to make pancakes and ice cream already and smoothies and things like that. So I thought it would be a really fun collaboration to join forces. And they haven't used mung beans for ice cream before, and they were very open. So I dropped off some samples last week, and I dropped off cooked and our products. And so we're in conversation about what that could look like.
It's amazing. And for the audiences, for those who are probably not as educated on the mung bean, it is a popular ingredient in desserts in Asia and in the eastern part of the globe, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think people probably hear bean in the American culture, the only thing we think of in a sweet sense or a dessert sense is the vanilla bean. And then to a secondary degree, maybe cocoa beans. But I think most Americans don't think of or dessert if they hear the word mung bean.
Yeah, mung beans, the split ones, they break down really easily and it's really creamy and smooth. So pancakes are really popular for mung beans and cookies and using it for a batter. And so it felt like a pretty natural fit. And red bean has become really popular as well with red bean ice creams and things like that. Yeah, I haven't seen it here, but I'm sure it's out there in Asia of mung bean ice cream.
Look, you guys are about to break out the first flavor here soon enough. So I'm sure if the negotiations finish up, we will be able to share information on the brand blueprint for those fans that live in the Cleveland market or will be visiting Central Ohio at some point, that they can go check out this fantastic new ice cream flavor. And also, while you're there, pick up some Moumas. So let's transition into the core interview because I want to share with the audience this fantastic brand founder story. And I think it starts from the beginning. So are you ready to get started?
Let's go.
All right, let's get into it. So one of the things that we talk a lot about on the brand blueprint is the journey from idea to actual first product. So I want you to tell the audience a little bit about where the ideal from Mouma's actually came from and what was the first problem you were actually trying to solve with this product?
Yeah. So the idea came from, and I'll back up a little bit even before the idea. I've always wanted to start a business. I think it's so fun to create things from nothing. And so I think I have 4 or 5 URLs and Instagram accounts that have gone nowhere. So that's the background on me, that this is something that's always interested me. Like I never quite had that idea or opportunity. The stars hadn't aligned. But the reason I thought of this is because I became a mom. And I started to care even more about health and nutrition and food. And my husband is not Indian, he's Lebanese. And I also wanted to make sure that my kids were having the food of Indian culture. My parents don't live close by, my in-laws do. So I wanted to just make sure that they're getting that exposure to Indian culture and who they are and things like that. And food is a great pathway for that, in addition to language and art. So I was cooking for them pretty intentionally, like Indian food and things like that. But with work and life being busy, I was finding myself defaulting to mac and cheese and chicken nuggets and boxed foods way too often. So I started to just meal prep in a way that felt not so daunting to me, where it wouldn't take up my whole Sunday, and just pre-portioning out spices and lentils and getting everything ready. So when I come home, I can just pull something together. It's fresh, it's authentic, it tastes good, it's healthy, all those different things. And one day, my in-laws had my kids, had to work late. I went to pick them up, and I was like, "Hey, what'd you guys have for dinner?" And my father-in-law pulled out a rice-a-roni box, and I was like, "Hey, I could do that." I'm like already doing that. And just started thinking, and then I sat with it and was like, I really feel like there's something there. So I went down some Reddit threads and was like, how do you start a business? CPG, starting to learn the vocabulary and things. And this book started showing up a lot on Reddit. If you want to start a business, read this book. It's called $1,000,000 Weekend.
Yep.
And I ordered it on Amazon. I read it over the weekend. And then that Monday, I was convinced and I started a business. I ordered products online. I figured out how to register. So I was like, if I think about it too much, it's not going to happen. So we're just going to try it out and see what happens.
Wow. So before this became a packaged product, in that process of you ordering stuff and kind of just figuring it out, and I so appreciate the fact that you actually went and found books, did research, and really try to prepare yourself for not just the specific product, but for life as a founder. So you do this preparation, you decide that you're going to enter into this food space. What was the first version of the product or the first MVP? What did that look like?
So I made a design on Canva. I had a little Indian lady icon. It was so cute. I still love her, but it's obviously trademark issues. I can't use that. And it was not a design. I'm not a designer. So I made a label, a sticker label on Canva. I bought these little pouches on Amazon. And so I was manually cutting it and putting the label on. And then I was doing the pre-portioned lentils and made a little spice pouch and things like that. And I created an anonymous Google form and I mailed it out to some of my friends.
Yeah.
And some people that I was not really friends with, but I knew they cared about food and would give good feedback. So I sent it to 20 to 30 people and I asked them to take this survey.
Wow.
And I got great feedback. And I also got great feedback of, yes, I would buy this and this is great. And also feedback like, oh, it was a little too watery and I don't know if I made it well. The directions didn't tell me quite what it's supposed to look like. So that gave me an idea of what needed to be updated on the recipe and what would need to be in future packaging. So that was really helpful. And so I had a good kind of basis entering into the farmer's market circuit. And then also I wanted to see if people would actually buy the product. So that was one of the questions for them of would you buy this at this price point? And then open space for comments.
Now, what did you learn from those early experiences at the farmer markets and the pop-ups that you did? Because I know with a lot of founders, there is this, especially in the food and consumer product space, there is this definitive local opportunity that exists in almost every city in the country to go out and engage consumers in farmers markets and different pop-up opportunities. What did you learn early on about your brand? And then how did that influence the evolution of the product?
Yeah. So I still remember my first farmer's market so vividly. We actually ended up selling out, which doesn't, obviously that's subjective. It just means that we didn't, because we were hand packing everything. So it's very, so, but the fact that we sold 40 of each SKU and got to pack up was like, oh, this could really be something. We also tracked questions that people were asking and then starting to take note of demographics. And
I'm curious, not to interrupt you, but I'm curious about that part because this is a slightly different food item that maybe is not mainstream to America, like we talked about early in the interview. So what kind of feedback were you getting from people at the farm? Because I would think people in the farmer's market, I shop at farmer's markets. I'd like to think I'm a fairly cultured shopper and I kind of know a little something, but I also go to farmers markets, frankly, to find new things and to see new types of varieties of vegetables and fruits and types of food. So what kind of questions were you getting at the farmer's market and how was that reflecting on your thought process on what you actually were trying to deliver in terms of a product? Were people getting it?
Well, one thing that we struggled with communicating then and actually even now is a lot of people, because our product is in a pouch format, a lot of people think it's heat and eat or it's just add water, but like actually it takes some prep and it yields like one pot. So we sell our product for $8. When we started out, we sold it for $9 because we're accounting our time in our cost. And it took a lot of time because when we moved over to a manufacturer, we didn't want to have to then spike up our prices.
You were $8 or $9, you're saying for a whole pot of
Yeah,
lentils. Wow.
So the kind of feedback we were getting was like people were assuming it was like one meal or one serving because it came in a pouch. Long term, we do want to move to a box, but in order to do that, we would have to really scale for the unit economics to make sense. We got some feedback from Indian people, which was really helpful because our first market was like right outside of the Cleveland State campus. So they were like, oh, this tastes good, but it feels like an ingredient is missing. And I was like, what is missing? And realized like there needs to be more tamarind. So we got some like very specific feedback on that.
That's fascinating. And that actually brings up a question I hadn't planned on asking, but I've got to ask it because of this scenario. And I think founders struggle with this, which you clearly embraced it, which is taking feedback from the culture on a product that you had already authoritatively launched with your cultural view, but you were willing to take a wider range of viewpoints and feedback on, is this close enough to authentic? Is this close enough to the flavor profile you were trying to deliver? Talk a little bit about being a founder and having people give you feedback on your brand, because what I describe it as is it is hearing sometimes bad or negative information about your baby. Like your brand is a founder's baby. And you don't usually criticize people's babies. Right? You don't walk up to people in public and say, hey, you could have did a better job with this. The hair is just not as long as I think it should be, right? Or he's a little shorter than I thought you were going to actually put out there. So talk a little bit about what that feeling is like to take the feedback and then, in your case, to quickly incorporate it into the ongoing development of the product.
Yeah, I feel like I could spend an hour just talking about this. So I'll go back a little further. I was not an A student growing up. I feel like my whole life I've been taking feedback. And so it's not like I'm a natural excellent student. I never excelled. I played soccer my whole life. I was like definitely average. I feel like I've always had that growth mindset, and it's really hard to offend me. It's just very hard. And throughout my career too, I work in the public sector, nonprofit, where it's a hard field and you are fighting for resources. You're fighting really complex situations, from housing affordability to food access and things like that. So I think my career and trajectory in life really prepared me to just not really get offended, which has been really great to be able to apply in this circumstance. I work in consulting now in the social impact side, and it was the startup. Our company was acquired, so now I work for a bigger firm, but it was like a startup when I started. And it was just a very intense environment where we were really doing business development to keep our jobs. So I think that grittiness has really helped me, that I didn't seek out and it was circumstantial. And so now I take feedback as data and information and I apply it, and it's really been helpful.
It's so cool. To your point, at your day job, you are consulting in the social impact space. And I'm sure in many cases, you're giving your client advice that you're hoping they will actually listen to and incorporate. And so it's pretty cool to hear you as a founder taking that same approach with your brand. Now, taking that question and one step further, I think there's a lot of founders who are listening to this and watching this who are also parents and also working a full-time job. Matter of fact, somebody's listening to this podcast right now at their job or with their kids, and they're sitting there thinking to themselves, I want to be a founder. I want to move my ideal, whatever that ideal is, to the next stage. What is your advice, Sruti, to founders who are sitting on the fence, so to speak, right? They have an idea, they've got a passion point, but they're really, frankly, not confident because they've got this full-time job that they know they can't give up right now, and they've got kids and other responsibilities. What would you say to that founder?
I would say it's really hard. In all honesty, I have a lot of privilege. I work from home, I work remote. I have a lot of autonomy over my calendar. So I think those conditions make it really helpful for me to be able to do this. I don't think I'd be able to if I was going into an office, or as much as I'm doing, if I was commuting, going into an office, like that. So I think that's really real. I also have my in-laws that live close by, and they're very supportive and involved and love spending time with my kids. Actually picked them up today from school at 11 o'clock in the morning for no reason. So I have a lot of conditions in my favor. On the other hand, I think just not trying to get bogged down by all the different things. I try to break down the next thing that I have to do, and I celebrate the wins. Like any progress feels like progress and momentum that's working towards something. Something that I've given myself permission to do is not compare myself to others and bring a lot of joy into this, because there's always going to be people that are moving faster, that have a bigger marketing budget and all those things. And so I've been very intentional about I have to stay true to myself and my circumstance. I'm not willing to miss my children's childhood in pursuit of this. And so how can I manage all those things without being really hard on myself?
Man, I love that. You're giving yourself grace as you still focus and push your product and your brand growth forward, but you also are recognizing that you're not going to always be able to do everything that you want to do. You're not going to be able to be everything to everybody right around you. And you've become really, I think, phenomenally focused and intentional about how you're building this brand. So that piece is really important for the audience to understand. You're a parent of younger kids, and you've been parenting throughout the stage as you've been growing the brand. Talk a little bit more about what are some of the things that you end up having to prioritize or simplify as a parent of younger kids in terms of building this brand.
For example, when I first started, I did all the farmers markets on whatever was available.
Yeah.
And
Was that Saturday, Sunday, all weekend you were at farmers markets?
it was usually there was one on Wednesdays.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I would actually take PTO and do that.
Wow.
And then there was one that was some Friday evenings and Saturday. So I started to track how many sales am I getting, what is the interest, things like that, and realized that doing all of it, I was burning myself out and wasn't. So then I started to really lean into the ones that made sense, where I could have long-term customers and get more sales. So I've recognized that we do really well at vegan markets. We do great with vegan populations and vegetarians that are looking for meal options. So we now make sure that we do vegan markets, and then anything additional, I try to space out once a month, something else. And so just getting really selective on that. And then the vegan markets happen to be in Pittsburgh, which is about 2 hours away. So having conversations with our distributor, like, okay, we have built this customer base in Pittsburgh, let's expand our retail footprint. So trying to think a little bit strategically with connecting our business and having more of a long-term strategy.
I love it. I want to shift into that long-term strategy and talk a little bit about where you're taking the brand. You've shared already with the audience kind of some of the practical steps you've taken to take the brand from concept to a real product. Now let's talk about taking it from a real product to scaling it and getting it out there to other channels, other markets, other states, etc. So I want you to first take the conversation from a practical level for the audience and talk about what were some of the first steps that you had to take to get your brand ready for retail distribution.
So I think one thing that we did early on that helped us become retail ready was we invested in our packaging. I did the Canva design for V1. I worked with an artist for V2. I wanted it to be a little bit more beautiful, but the person I worked with, big thing. And because retail buyers, they look at the packaging first to understand. That's like their first kind of checkpoint. So I would say if you can, invest in your design, packaging, branding. The other things that we did was we got set up with a distributor. We were doing direct store delivery and save costs there, doing that as much as possible until retailers told us, oh, your product would do great here, but we don't actually engage with direct store delivery. You have to go through a distributor. So we did it as long as possible and then made that transition in order to grow our retail accounts.
I love that you mentioned that, because I think there's a lot of mystery when new founders approach distribution and thinking through, how do I actually get my product to the store? And you mentioned a phrase that many founders probably hear, DSD, or direct store delivery, which is essentially what it sounds like. You are taking your product and you're delivering directly to each store, which means you're not dropping product in a warehouse and then the retailer is distributing the product for you. You're responsible for distributing. And so to Sruti's point, you have to find a way to scale that, because most people don't have the capacity, the money, or the resources to distribute their product across the country and across the markets that they want to compete in. So talk a little bit about what was some of the bigger learning curves that you encountered as you started to work with distributors and wholesalers and trying to figure out that whole part of the strategy.
And one other thing I left out in the last question, sorry. Early on, we started working with a co-packer because we were—
Here we go. Okay, tell us a little bit about it.
Going to a commercial kitchen, packing our products. I was just so tired, and we were selling out because we just didn't have the time and capacity to continue packing. So reached out to several people. I have a spreadsheet of 50 companies that we reached out to and found a great co-packer in Michigan that we still work with now to actually package our product. So that was also something that got us ready for scale. And I think we might be able to continue working with this co-packer through our next phase of growth. But we also have a wait list of other places that our minimums when we are scaling will meet that threshold. So having that research done and moving to that co-packer was really—
could you share with the audience, because some people I think are a little bit reluctant to go work with a co-packer or a contract manufacturer because they're like, oh, I don't want to give up my secret formulation, or they may change my ingredients and it's not authentic anymore. How did you find the process of working with your contract manufacturer and co-packer? And ultimately, what would your advice be to founders who may not have experience working with co-packer?
Yeah, I think I approach it the way I approach any partnership. I just make sure I like them and I could trust them. That's the basis. And then all the details get worked out. We signed an NDA. I would recommend making sure, even before engaging, after an initial call, just make sure you protect yourself, make sure you have an NDA. And there's a lot of templates out there. I didn't have to work with a lawyer or anything. And the fact, if they're like willing to sign it immediately, those are all green flags.
Yep.
And then they did an initial test run. And there's a fee for that, which is more than what it would cost per unit when you actually do the run. Once we got our test run, testing the product, making sure it tasted great, we were lucky in the sense that we just gave weights of our recipes in grams. And then I also gave the measurements, which I don't think they actually need or use, but that's how I cooked the sample. So I was like, more information can't hurt. But because we gave the information in grams, the recipe did not fluctuate. It tasted just fine.
No, it's a great point, and that is definitely something that co-packers and contract manufacturers can help with. So for founders listening to this, or potential founders, when you're thinking through all of the conversions, all of the measurements, all of the ingredients that you now have to be very exact on, that is one of the other reasons why bringing in a contract manufacturing partner can be critical, because they have the systems, the processes, and the tools to quickly provide you with that information and allow you to then test through a couple of different either packaging options and or production options, with a focus on keeping your costs under control, because cost of goods is going to be a very key factor when you make that transition from being a person who's creating product at home or by themselves to now having a third party create that product for you. So as you transition through these retail opportunities, one of the things that recently happened is you went through Walmart's road to open call process. And people have probably heard a little bit about that. And we've talked a lot about this on our podcast. We've had several founders who have been in that room and have had a chance to present at open call. And you had a fantastic experience. I want you to tell the audience a little bit about that, and then tell the audience why this is an important opportunity for your brand.
Yeah. I didn't know what to expect going to Road to Open Call. And initially I applied and I was like, I don't know if we're quite ready for Walmart. Let me wait a year. And I'm part of the C-Spot cohort. That's what the opportunity was through. And I was talking to the staff and they were just like, just go for it. And so I decided to take their advice and put all the questions in my mind about manufacturing capacity and all that stuff aside and just take the opportunity. And I'm so glad I did. And I got that encouragement from you too, Dana. So thank you for that. But I went and it was a very welcoming environment. It was really special. I felt like they were really rooting for everybody in the room and really wanted folks to win and to have their brands be successful at Walmart or otherwise. So it was a very uplifting experience. I didn't know what to expect. And it felt very natural. I had my pitch deck, which was very helpful. I obsessed over it for weeks. But then when I was in the room with the person I was meeting with, it felt very conversational. She was sharing insights around global foods and how I could fit in. And I was sharing what I've heard from farmers markets. So it all felt very conversational. And then ultimately, ended up getting a FastPass, which was really fun to hit a bell. I didn't even realize that people could hear outside. And then folks came in and just celebrated the fact that we'll continue on and go to open call in Arkansas in a few months.
Yep. And this is a great opportunity for the brand. And it's a really great opportunity, to your point, even if you don't get the opportunity to get in Walmart, they genuinely want to see your brand succeed, and they give you feedback to that effect. Talk a little bit about the feedback that they provided you as part of this process and how that maybe potentially changed the way you're thinking about both your brand and the upcoming opportunity of securing distribution at Walmart.
Yeah. So I got two main pieces of feedback. One was just giving more velocity data because I'm in about 40 retailers now. So just sharing like how are sales going without demos, with demos, things like that. I shared more of we're in these stores, sales are going great. I didn't give much data behind it. So there's an opportunity there to just pull that information. And the second piece, which I thought was really interesting, in my pitch, I really position it as a family meal for busy people, especially moms, making dinner time easier. But what Walmart shared is that Indian food is the second fastest growing food category in their global foods. So it's Korean food, then Indian food, and then Mexican food. So they are really wanting global flavors and they're wanting Indian food options specifically. And that's something I didn't even realize. So I could play that up even more. I had a slide with different data points that were more macro around the dry beans category and the demand for global flavors through Indian restaurants growing in the US. But I grazed over it. And the person I was meeting with, she was like, wait, pause there. Actually, this is true and we're seeing this at Walmart.
And that's amazing. That is critical information for you to understand is the global trends are very much aligned with your current brand trajectory and launch, in that Indian food being the second most popular cultural cuisine on an international level. I think you said Korean first, Mexican third. Now I'm going to remember that as an acronym, KIM. So now I'll remember KIM is the acronym for the top 3 cultural food trends in the global marketplace. Happens to probably also be reflective of the top 3 cultural food choices in the Ammons household. So I can definitely identify with that. You are also, in addition to entering this process on the road to Walmart, you're actually on the road to expanding your distribution online in e-commerce marketplaces, including Amazon. Talk about a little bit about that and why you felt like now was the right time to start expanding into those channels.
Yeah, Amazon is just such a massive platform. So being able to grow my D2C channels through Amazon just felt like it made a lot of sense. I also think that being on Amazon and having a presence almost gives the company some validity, the way that a social media presence and a website does. So that standpoint as well. But primarily from a velocity standpoint and making sure that we're reaching customers and I don't have to be at a demo or a farmer's market just to be able to get the brand out there more. And also beyond the Midwest, we're primarily in Ohio right now.
It's such a great point. It is a much needed opportunity for scaling that doesn't put all the pressure on you as the founder to have to be present to sell the actual product. As you think about expanding into those channels, engaging with Walmart, I know there's a lot of founders that really think about Walmart and Target and Ulta and Sephora and some of these retailers as the best place for them to be and the ultimate destination. But tell the audience about it. Talk a little bit about where you overall see and want your brand to go and why retail is just one part of your overall plan.
Yeah. My vision for the brand is to be a pantry staple for families, for people that care about their health. And I would love to be how Near East rice is, where you're eating it on rotation. And so in order to reach that vision, it just needs to have a great presence nationally. So Walmart would be incredible. But then also other retailers, H-E-B, Whole Foods, Sprouts, and just being a product that's available anywhere online as well and having that digital footprint so that it's really normalized as people buying the product, consuming it, re-upping it on next week and things like that.
I love it. I love it. You've done a great job with just your natural instincts on how to better market the brand, how to create brand collaborations and flavor-led growth is what I would call it. Talk a little bit about, you had mentioned earlier a local collaboration with the Cleveland ice cream shop. How did that collaboration come about, and what was it about that ice cream shop or that particular business that made you feel like there was a values aligned opportunity to do something?
Yeah, I think it was really that piece, like values alignment. I feel really lucky that I have this company that I can have a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
So I think a lot about who are the companies that I love. So I'm always thinking about opportunities with other local companies that are doing things for our city and our community and the kind of brand that I want to be. I want to be a national brand, but I want to have a deep connection to Cleveland and our community. And this ice cream shop happens to do that. My kids' school is right down the street, and they go on a field trip there every summer, and they give to everyone. And they partner with the local pet adoption agency here. And that's the kind of company I want to be and just be really embedded in the community. I myself, through my career, am very embedded at working in local nonprofits. And so I want this company to be just an extension of that. We actually have a social impact partner, Minds Matter Cleveland. I was a mentor for Minds Matter. And so when I started this, I knew I wanted to have some sort of giving back connection to nonprofits because that's my field. And so we started a scholarship. We give a scholarship every year. So the first one actually just went out to a student that's going to college in the fall. So I'm always thinking about that. I think that's my personality getting pulled into the brand because I feel like at this stage I can do that and I can have fun with it.
I love that vision and that desire to stay connected to Cleveland and to really amplify your community. As you think about the brand extending out from the Cleveland market and across the country, what is it about Mouma's that you want people to understand and know about the brand as it expands into different markets? What do you want it to represent?
I think connection and community. I want people to feel like they're supporting a brand that's going to support the community. And I think that as the brand grows, the social impact will grow outside of Cleveland as well and become more issue focused. I look at companies like Burt's Bees and Tofurkey, which are certified B Corps, and they are very connected to causes that they care about. And I could see as the brand evolves and grows, really honing into causes that I care about or our leadership team cares about: education, opportunity, economic mobility. And so we're not quite big enough to really make a difference in that whole sector or field, but I would really love for that to happen in the future.
And like you said, maybe you're not big enough yet, but you're on your way there and you've learned a lot on that journey. Tell me and our audience about one mistake or delay or hard lesson that you would help another founder of.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. So I'm trying to figure out.
It could be, let me even give you a further point. It could be something that you actually avoided because you got great advice, or the accelerator network, or one of your many founder mentors or family members or community members warned you about, and you did avoid it, but you know that it's something that founders actually struggle with and many times make the mistake early on.
I say more like missed opportunities, because the way you communicate your brand, I've had to learn over the last years. Like, I'm passionate about my social impact and scholarship with Minds Matter, and I'm passionate about certain things that excite me, but really knowing your audience and when applying for a pitch or a grant application or a retailer, really understanding it's not just all about you because you're the one that created it and you're excited and it's your baby, but really thinking about the value and what you're going to bring to the partners that you have at the table. So being more prepared to think about mutual benefits. Also, one thing that has really come across from mentorship is that making it to retail is, once you're there, like staying on shelves, velocity, making sure your numbers work. That's the real hard work. And I'm really preparing myself and thinking about marketing strategies and demos and hiring and things like that, so that when we scale in our current accounts, our 40 accounts, how can we be successful? And I think we're doing well there because it's a pay number and it's local. When we're national and when we launch, hopefully in these different national retail accounts, how can we be successful? I don't want to be on the shelf for 3 months and then not reach our numbers and then miss that opportunity.
I love that. I think part of that ingenious of your approach is your background and experience and social impact. And I want you, as we come to the end of the interview, I want you to talk a little bit about how has your work and social impact expanded your vision for your own brand and company? Because you've already talked a little bit about your passion for community, your need to really stay grounded on that aspect. How has your work and social impact impacted the way you've managed this brand? And ultimately, how does that shape the way you think about the growth of the brand and the ownership of the brand?
I love that question because actually, when you asked your first rapid fire question and I was thinking of the word, I was debating between comforting and accessibility. And accessibility is really what I would say for this question here. I want the product to be accessible. I want it to be an accessible price point. I want it to be easy to reach. I really want it to support people's lifestyles, whether they're trying to be healthy or quickly feed their families or feed themselves. And so I take that into consideration in all of the decisions I make. So working really hard to have our COGS be as low as possible so we can give a great price point. Something I always think about is we were at a farmer's market last year and people were using their tokens through a public food assistance program to buy our products. And I'm like, yes, this is what it's all about. It's not meant for just a certain population or a certain demographic or economic kind of situation. It's for everybody. And I want to work really hard as we grow and scale that it could reach even more people that like the food and want to eat it.
Man, that's a powerful example, especially in these current times where, frankly, many people across the country are struggling with food insecurity, are struggling with access to healthy food options for their family. And Moma's has a great product in these lentil family meals that I think are perfect replacements. And to your point, should be accessible to all cultures, all income levels. So, such a great example and such a great way to end our conversation around the mission that you have put Moma's on with your social impact passion. I really appreciate the conversation today. You have been so open and transparent about the journey and about what you have really sacrificed to make Moma's what it is today, and obviously sharing with us some recent wins, especially the opportunity now to continue the road to open call and head to Walmart in the fall for an opportunity to secure some distribution in their stores and on their website. So we are really looking forward to see this brand continue to grow, and I really appreciate you pulling the curtain back on what it really means to grow a brand like Moma's in real life.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was really nice to chat about the business and just appreciate you giving me this chance.
Really love it. And for folks that have been watching and are obviously interested in supporting the brand, learning more about the brand, and potentially trying out some of the great product, which I definitely encourage all of my listeners and viewers to do. So for those people who want to find out more about you, where can they find you? Share your website, your social media handles, and all of the different places that they can purchase your product.
Awesome. Yeah. So our Instagram is and our website is also at eatmomas.com.
I love it. All right. Remember, everybody who watches and listens, we will have that information available for you in the show notes, as well as on www.thebrandblueprint.biz, not .com, because we're about that biz. You'll be able to find this information about Sruti's company, Moma's, and you will be able to find the links to visit her website where you can purchase product to try out and enjoy with your family. And if you are a founder who is building a brand and looking for additional support and information, make sure you share this information to friends of yours who you know also could benefit from all of the great advice that Sruti gave us today. I really appreciate you again for taking the time out of your schedule to join the Brand Blueprint and share this wonderful journey that this brand is on. So make sure you go out and follow and share our content everywhere and anywhere in which you watch your podcast content. And that includes Apple Podcasts, which is now in video format. And you'll be able to find a copy of this video presentation on Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube, Spotify, and other podcast channels. Thanks again for hanging out with us today, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Brand Blueprint.
Thanks for joining us on the Brand Blueprint journey. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay updated. Watch the full episodes on our YouTube channel for an in-depth experience. Don't forget to subscribe to our website at thebrandblueprint.biz for exclusive content and materials. We're everywhere you need us to be.